Shangdu, a sanatorium with a quiet environment and the fragrance of birds and flowers. In a room that was a little dark after most of the curtains were drawn, blocking the sunlight, a pale-skinned handsome boy was working on a puzzle. It's not that kind of children's toy, but a 1,000-piece puzzle that is suitable for adults to play. It's just that teenagers' gameplay seems to be a little different from that of ordinary people. All the pieces of the puzzle are not face up, but back up, and look exactly the same except for those at the edges. The young man was very interested, and seemed to be fighting, and even almost finished, only the last few pieces were left. The boy's name is Bai Yat, he has autism, mild schizophrenia, and other messy diseases, and is a senior patient of this sanatorium. At the age of 5, Bai Yi's mind inexplicably had a thing, the rod of power and wealth. So, Bai Yat, who was originally just an ordinary child, became a problem child. After a few years, it was really hopeless for a cure, and for various reasons, he came to this sanatorium. Of course, this sanatorium is not an ordinary sanatorium. The patients and patients living in it all have mental problems just like Bai Yat. Some are more serious, while others are mild mental problems, not really diseases. Nursing homes will not accept really serious patients. This sanatorium costs a lot of money, and the patients in it usually get better care, which is much better than that kind of mental hospital. Bai Yat is 18 years old this year, and it took him nearly 13 years. Half a year ago, he became the agent of this scepter. He got rid of the confused state and gradually returned to a normal person. Of course, this normality is only relatively normal. It is not only a person who has been out of touch with society for more than 10 years, but can become a truly normal ordinary person in a short period of time through study and restorative treatment. But at least Bai Yat now has no problem communicating with people. He can talk and laugh, read and literate without obstacles, and at least he has the level of the second grade of junior high school. It can be regarded as a model of counterattack in nursing homes. 13 years of psychotic career, of course, cannot be completely unrewarded. Bai Yat became the agent of the scepter, the lowest level agent. But even at the lowest level, Bai Yat has several very special ability. The first is transaction ability, or transaction authority. As the first level agent of the scepter, Bai Yat can make 3 transactions with anyone within 24 standard hours, and 3 transactions that are recognized by both parties. And, a forced transaction can be made, and the transaction will be forced regardless of whether the other party approves it or not. As long as Bai Yat makes a transaction request to a person, no matter how absurd the content is, the other party will seriously consider whether the transaction is feasible. As for the conditions for deciding whether it is feasible, it is naturally the price paid by Bai Yat. As for the forced transaction, it is equivalent to pressing the opponent's head, eliminating the need to consider the process, and Bai Yat only needs to give a small token reward. The second ability that Bai Yat can use is teleportation. It is not a teleportation like Doraemon's random door, but a teleportation ability that can send Bai Yat himself to other worlds. This also proves that the scepter did not come from the earth, but from other worlds. Hey, check my current state. Spreading out his hand, a black rod with black patterns on it, about 1 meter in length, and a gorgeous scepter with a mysterious feeling hovered above his palm, Bai Yat said softly. Hey, in the 13-year Runan period, after Bai Yat became the agent, in order to better use the scepter, the best auxiliary system born according to the current situation. If the scepter is likened to a complex electrical appliance, then the black is the instruction manual for the electrical appliance. But both are quite high-end. Yes. Hei's voice was cold and mechanical, and did not contain any emotion. Along with the voice appearing in Bai Yi's ear, a message also appeared in Bai Yi's eyes. White Knight race, human status, first level agent of the rod of power and wealth value, 0. The so-called power and wealth value is the key to Bai Yi's further control of the staff of power and wealth. If you want to obtain the right and wealth value, all you have to do is to trade. Through transactions, continuous income, and thus the value of power and wealth, Can you continue to move up from the first level agent, truly become the owner of the rod of power and wealth, and change from doing things for it to controlling it? The basic situation is like this. Everything about the rod of power and wealth at a deeper level is not clear to Bai Ye now. The open palm was retracted again, the scepter disappeared at the same time. Bai Ye stood up, stretched, opened the door of the room and walked out. The place where Bai Ye is located is the living building of the sanatorium. There are 10 floors in total. The first floor is the hall, the second floor is the restaurant, and the 10th floor is the accommodation. There are 10 comfortable and pleasant rooms on each floor for patients like Bai Ye. All kinds of facilities are available in the rooms, and the rooms are on the north and south sides. In the middle of the floor is the elevator. There are now more than 50 patients in the sanatorium, and more than 20 rooms are vacant. And Bai Ye, as a real senior level resident, lives on the top 10 floors, and he is the only one living on the entire floor. Taking the elevator to the second floor, there were already many people eating dinner in the restaurant, including some patients, nursing home staff and 1 or 2 family members of patients who came to visit. He approached the window and ordered a meal. Bai Ye walked to the small table next to him and sat down. Soon someone brought the freshly prepared food. After all, it is an expensive nursing home, and it is impossible for patients to eat from the canteen. Bai Ye casually stuffed delicious food into his mouth, and after a while, a person sat down in front of him. Not a patient, but a doctor in a sanatorium, a very young and beautiful-looking female doctor in a white coat. Even without any makeup on, and wearing old-fashioned glasses on purpose, it still can't stop the amazing feeling conveyed by that face. Bai Ye, how are you feeling recently? The female doctor asked directly after she sat down. Song Yin became the doctor of this sanatorium a year ago, and took over the nail household of the sanatorium in Bai Ye with the blind confidence that a newborn calf is not afraid of tigers. At that time, other doctors in the nursing home were waiting to see the jokes of this beautiful young girl. Unexpectedly, after Song Yin's long-term treatment, Bai Ye gradually recovered, and Song Yin also gained a firm foothold in the nursing home. In addition, she really has a very strong ability. Song Yin is now also a star doctor in the sanatorium, and many patients and even their family members come to her. Song Yin's feelings and attitude towards Bai Ye are also slightly different, at least she is closer than ordinary patients. Very good. Bai Ye raised his head and glanced at Song Yin, then continued to lower his head to eat. Song Yin's brows creased slightly, then relaxed immediately. She smiled and asked, "Have you contacted your family and when are you going to be discharged from the hospital?" Bai Ye swallowed the last bite of the meal and looked at Song Yin with a strange expression. "Why are you leaving the hospital?" Song Yin blinked, and after being silent for a while, she asked, "You like it here, don't you plan to leave the hospital?" "Yes." Bai Ye nodded as a matter of course, "This place is very good. After I leave the hospital, I have to work to support myself. I have read books. Isn't it good to work to support yourself?" Song Yin said, "This is a necessary growth path for everyone." "Ha!" Bai Ye chuckled, "It's impossible to work part-time, it's impossible to work part-time in this life." Song Yin let out a sigh of relief. She suddenly realized that although she helped Bai Ye to get rid of her autistic child status, and even was no different from a normal person for a while, she had been lacking in contact with the outside world for a long time. It slipped in another unusual direction. "Then do you like it here?" Song Yin asked, trying to figure out what Bai Ye was thinking. "Of course, everyone here is talented and has a good temper. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com speaks nicely." Bai Ye said with a smile, turning his head and shouting to a middle-aged man eating at another table, "Old man King, you bald man." The man who was eating over there slammed the chopsticks in his hand, with an angry expression on his face. He was about to stand up and fight Bai Ye desperately. But for a moment he seemed to remember something again, shook his head, whispered a few words similar to self-comfort, and smiled at Bai Yat. Bai Yat, it's not right for you to talk like this. Even if you look handsome, if you talk like this, you will be beaten. Bai Ye nodded, then turned back to Song Yin and said, look. Song Yin's right hand on the table unconsciously clenched into a fist, resisting the urge to put the leftovers in front of her on Bai Yi's head. Comrade Lao Wang is a maniac patient. He finally got better after treatment, but now Bai Ye has done such a debilitating thing. Fortunately, Song Yin is a doctor with professional ethics, so she can only maintain a good anger, but still keep smiling attitude, and said to Bai Yat, since you are not going to be discharged from the hospital, then stay for a while. He stood up, walked away quickly. Speaking of which, Song Yin is also kind, and this Qingshan Sanatorium is not a non-profit welfare organization. As long as the money is in place, Bai Ye will stay in the sanatorium until the sanatorium closes or he dies, and the money given by Bai Yi's family has always been in place. Watching Song Yin, whose footsteps were unstable, leave, Bai Ye also stood up, walked to the elevator entrance, and walked upstairs leisurely. Back in his room, Bai Ye locked the doorman, put on a pair of sneakers, moved around a bit, and said, teleport. Bai Yi's body suddenly blurred, and then disappeared into this room. Without any relevant preparations, happily teleporting directly to other worlds is not reckless in the White Knight. Well, maybe he really didn't think about it that much, but even if he wanted to prepare, there was nothing to prepare. The world chosen by the Rod of Power and Wealth is completely random for Bai Yat, a first-level agent. He has no way to choose to teleport to a certain world, and he has no idea what he will face. The only thing that is certain is that the world will be a stable world with a civilized order, and Bai Ye will not be thrown into some wild land. It is also impossible to directly throw Bai Ye into a Jedi like the deep sea, but to teleport him to a suitable and safe location. Clothes, shoes, and small objects that can be placed close to the body or can be lifted up in the hand will also be sent together, and other larger objects outside the body cannot be sent together for the time being. There is not much dizziness. The entire process of teleportation, for Bai Yat, is that when the eyes are dark, he leaves the room and enters another world. Simple, fast, and unreal. The place where Bai Ye appeared is a dark alley where some elements of a modern city can be seen. Black, scan and collect language elements. Bai Ye said. An invisible wave emanated from Bai Ye, and after a while, Hei's voice sounded, it has been collected, you can choose to pour it directly, or organize and study. Of course it's direct infusion. Bai Ye didn't want to answer. To organize and study such things, no matter how talented Bai Ye is, it is impossible to master a foreign language in a short period of time. Besides, studying is a very tiring thing. Bai Ye will not treat himself badly, there is a better way not to be a fool. In fact, the study in the sanatorium did not mean that Bai Ye started to learn the basic knowledge from the very beginning like a child, but directly infused with the power of the Rod of Power and Wealth. Bai Ye spends most of his study time learning about a world that is quite unfamiliar to him through platforms such as TV and the Internet. After mastering the language of this world, at least a large area, Bai Ye walked out of this alley with an excited smile on his face. Time, it is in the evening, when the night is approaching. The street lights beside the street were already on, but the brightness was very low, not even as bright as the last bit of light brought by the setting sun. The street is wide. Looking up and looking around, there are all kinds of high-rise buildings. A standard steel and cement forest, and it's a little colder than an ordinary steel forest where you can see in the white night. The city's main colors are only black and grey, and even the neon of the shops on both sides of the street is inexplicably tinged grey. Many buildings go straight into the sky, sharp as swords, in Gothic style. This is a city that looks gorgeous at first glance, but if you take a closer look, you will find a gloomy feeling that is overflowing from the glitz. Fortunately, the various crowds on the street dissipated such a gloomy feeling. If it is in the second half of the night, walking in such a city will definitely not feel very comfortable. The curious and excited smile on Bai Yi's face did not weaken at all, and he looked around with interest. After wandering around for about half an hour, the sky had completely dimmed, and the street lights on the roadside finally came in handy. Just when he was thinking about who to ask for a transaction, Bai Ye heard a suppressed low voice coming from the side. Then, the pedestrians who were still walking on the street began to hurry up. Those who got in the car got into the car, and those who entered the adjacent buildings entered the adjacent buildings, and even the speed of the cars on the road accelerated a little. What happened? Bai Ye grabbed a little brother and passed him by. The little brother was about to walk into the restaurant not far away, and was pulled by Bai Ye. He seemed a little anxious, but he said patiently, "Look at the sky." Bai Ye looked up and looked at the sky. There was a bat symbol in the night sky, which was made by a searchlight. "I understand." Bai Ye laughed and let go of his hand. "Hide for a while. God knows what kind of lunatic came out this time. If it is affected, it will be miserable." The little brother walked into the restaurant. Of course Bai Ye didn't follow. On the contrary, he stood there and laughed happily. Gotham City is full of outstanding people, and Arkham is full of talents. This world, or this city, is known to Bai Ye, or it can be said to be familiar, well, only relatively familiar. He knew that this city, the darkness and danger hidden under the surface prosperity, day and night can even be said to be different places. During the day, Gotham City is a prosperous city with a developed economy, a steel forest. Gotham City at night is a paradise for a group of mentally ill and criminals. Of course, it doesn't mean that it has been exaggerated to the extent that once it's night, ordinary people don't come out, otherwise it will be a tragedy. It's just that the city's law and order is indeed a bit bad, and the crime rate remains high. But the appearance of the bat logo in the sky means that the dark night of Gotham City, Batman will appear. What can make Gotham City's police officers helpless, turn on the searchlights, and let Batman handle things is definitely dangerous. Naturally, everyone should avoid it as soon as possible. If it is affected, where will you cry? The originally lively streets had begun to become empty. Bai Ye stretched out his hand and stopped a taxi. The driver stopped, pressed the window and said, "Where are you going? If it's too far, I won't drive." "Bing Shan Restaurant." Bai Ye said, "Is it very far?" "Not far." The driver nodded, "Get in the car quickly, I'll go home later." "No hurry, I want to make a deal with you." Bai Ye looked at the driver and said. "What?" The driver was stunned for a moment, and the anxious look on his face gradually faded. "Okay, what deal?" "I don't have any money, how about you take me to Bing Shan Restaurant and I tell you a joke?" Bai Ye said. "Okay, get in the car. Actually, it's just another block. It's a 5-minute drive. You can walk there." The driver thought for a few seconds and said, "Thank you." Bai Ye got into the car with a smile. It really is Gotham City with simple folk customs. The driver happily accepted the compliment. "Hey, how much money did you get from this transaction?" Bai Ye asked in his heart after getting into the car and telling the driver a bad joke. 0.00005. Isn't that the same as no? Bai Ye grinned. It is not too easy to obtain the equity value, and not all transactions can obtain the equity value. To put it simply, the larger the transaction scale, the greater the impact, or the greater the income, the more rights and financial values that can be obtained. Such a small transaction like just now can be basically equivalent to not being able to obtain rights. Value transactions. That 0.00005 was generated when Bai Ye's level was still very low. If Bai Ye already has some wealth value at this time, the wealth value of 0.00005 will not be there. The car stopped at the entrance of Bing Shan Restaurant. The driver stepped on the accelerator and left without saying a word. On the surface, this iceberg restaurant is just an ordinary restaurant. In fact, this is the stronghold of Gotham City's underworld tycoon, the arms dealer, the Penguin. It is not clear whether it is one of the White Knights, but there is no doubt that through this restaurant, the Penguin can be found. On both sides of the entrance of Bing Shan restaurant, there are two black-clothed men with a height of about 2 meters. Generally speaking, there is such a roll at the door of the restaurant, which will definitely drive away some potential customers. But this is Gotham City, a city of outstanding people. Having two big men like this guarding the outside will give people an inexplicable sense of security. For example, in Beijing now, I see a few people hurried into the Iceberg restaurant, which seems to be the reason for the bat symbol in the sky. If these people knew that the behind-the-scenes owner of this restaurant was the famous Penguin in Gotham City, wouldn't they scream and run away in fright? But then again, Penguin is a little different from other criminals who are mentally ill and will be imprisoned in Arkham Asylum after being caught. He is a profit-oriented, reading www.uuganshu.com cravings to climb up guys. Penguin is not like the neurotic Riddler, who installs his own puzzles all over Gotham City, nor is he like Double-Faced who robs a bank and flips a coin to decide whether a person deserves to die. It's even more impossible to take some hostages like the Mad Clown and play a game with Batman. Relatively speaking, penguins are relatively less dangerous to civilians. Of course, if the penguin is considered harmless because of this, the corpse of such an innocent man would probably have been thrown into the sea outside Gotham City. I want to see your boss. Bai Ye walked up to one of the big men and said. Boy, do you know what you're talking about? The big man was stunned for a moment, then said with a sneer. Of course, I want to see your boss, Cobot, or the Penguin. Bai Ye said with a smile. The expressions of the two big men changed slightly. You must know that not many people knew that the behind-the-scenes owner of Bing Shan restaurant was a penguin. How did this little devil, who looked thin, maybe not even an adult, know that? I know Batman's true identity, and I want to make a deal with Cobot. Bai Ye didn't have much time to think about those two people, and directly explained his purpose. The two looked at each other, one stared at Bai Ye, and the other walked to the side and made a phone call. Soon, the man walked back. Boy, wait here. Aren't you going to invite me in? Bai Ye pointed at the door of the Bing Shan restaurant. At least invite me to have a drink Coke. 10 minutes later, after drinking a glass of Coke, Bai Ye walked out of the Bing Shan restaurant and got into the back seat of a black car parked at the door. The back seat is not the only passenger in Bai Ye. There was also a short, stocky man who looked very strange. He looked like a huge and cumbersome penguin, but he was dressed in a delicate and period black suit. He was meticulously dressed, trying to look like a high-class gentleman. But the sinister, cunning, and eccentric appearance revealed in those small eyes completely destroyed the effect he hoped to achieve. You said you know Batman's true identity, boy. Penguin is not a polite guy. Just as Bai Ye sat firmly, the tip of the umbrella in his hand poked on Bai Ye's chest. This umbrella is not ordinary. Penguin likes umbrellas very much, and is also very keen to transform umbrellas into weapons. Bai Ye has no doubt that the tip of the umbrella will shoot out a tongue of flame in the next second, and then he will be pierced by bullets or something. Moreover, even without this umbrella, Bai Ye couldn't be the opponent of the penguin. Although Penguin is short in stature, this guy has received training in martial arts and judo. The reason why it gives the impression that this person is weak in hand-to-hand combat is because the person he often encounters is Batman. When the Penguin meets Batman, it is basically the same as meeting the Penguin in the White Knight. But Bai Ye didn't care at all. Because compared to the weapons in Penguin's hands and the self-defense technique that can basically only be used to prevent himself from being beaten too hard, the rod of power and wealth he possesses is invincible. Let's make a deal, Cooper. Bai Ye opened Penguin's umbrella, looked at him and said. Originally, the Penguin, who was planning to teach this uncomfortable boy a lesson, put down his umbrella and immediately entered a state of business negotiation. What deal? This is a little bit of the power of the rod of power and wealth, which can allow the other party to enter the transaction stage as quickly as possible. Even if the transaction is unsuccessful in the end, it will be a matter for a while. When Bai Ye said the word deal, he could not tolerate the other party's rejection. This kind of power was not a simple hypnotism, but a level closer to a certain rule. About Batman's true identity, Bai Ye said while groping around in the car. What are you doing, looking for an agency? The Penguin changed the topic slightly. Bai Ye shook his head. I've never been in a car like this before, I'm just curious. Humph, of course, this is a high-end stuff. Penguin looks complacent, and being able to gain the envy and respect of others, even if it is false, will make him very happy. I'll tell you the true identity of Batman. Bai Ye, like a curious baby, was about to dismantle the car and asked, what about you, what are you willing to pay? What do you want? Of course the Penguin would not give his chips easily. Come here casually for 108,000, and you also need an umbrella weapon that you modified. In addition, give me your contact information so that I can contact you in the future. The last one is not a transaction. Bai Ye said. Penguin frowned slightly, not because Bai Ye wanted more, but less. It's just that, as long as Bai Ye only has so much, of course Penguin will not take the initiative to increase the price. He agreed immediately, yes. Bai Ye said with a smile, then the deal is established. In this way, the transaction has been established, and neither party can go back. If it is other normal transactions, the law is naturally used to ensure the execution, and the guarantee behind the transaction between Bai Ye and the Penguin is the rod of power and wealth. Speaking of which, Bai Ye didn't know what would happen if one party repented and wanted to violate the deal. But he knew that the end would definitely be tragic. Not to mention, just because of the ability to teleport, since the rod of power and wealth can send Bai Ye to other suitable worlds, it can naturally send other people to a desperate situation where there is no possibility of survival. Of course, what tragic end will happen after the violation is just Bai Ye's guess. The greater possibility is that once you agree, you won't have any idea of violating it. Just like the beginning of the transaction, there is no competition. Batman's real identity is Bruce Wayne. Bai Ye said to the Penguin. What? The Penguin was a little surprised. That playboy, how is that possible? I once saw two people appear at the same time. Bai Ye didn't speak, just looked at the Penguin with a kind of caring eyes for the mentally handicapped. Penguin said angrily, you mean that one of them is a stand-in? Well, maybe it makes sense, but how do you know? When he asked this, it wasn't because the Penguin wanted to go back on it, but because he wanted to know more about it. Who is Bruce Wayne? Heir to the Wayne family, super rich, playboy. The surname Wayne is even more meaningful to Gotham City. It is rude to say that the Wayne family supports the development of the entire Gotham City, and their business spreads throughout Gotham and extends to the side of Gotham. Corners, almost monopolizing everything in Gotham City. If Gotham at night belongs to Batman, Gotham during the day belongs to the Wayne family. For Bruce Wayne, my city is not an adjective or a deep expression of love for Gotham City, but a true description of reality. Think about it, in this city, apart from the Wayne Group, who would have the financial resources to support Batman's expensive toys? Bai Ye said casually. It does make some sense, said the Penguin. From Batman's car, aircraft, and various equipment, it can be seen that the huge financial resources behind it are unimaginable. Besides the Wayne family, who else would support all this? Penguin is also clear that Bruce Wayne and Batman seem to have a good relationship, and it is not impossible to support Batman. But if the two are the same person, it is a more reasonable answer. I'm going to announce this matter. After thinking about it, Penguin basically concluded that Bai Ye didn't lie to him, and laughed loudly. Obviously, after suffering a lot from Batman's hands, he felt that the hardships would come to an end. A good chance to fix Batman. Bai Ye took out a few white napkins next to them, tore them twice, pressed down the car window, and threw them out. "What are you doing?" the penguin asked. "I'll give you some paper money in advance, so that you will still have money in another world after you die. There's no need to thank us for the custom over there," Bai Ye said with a smile. Penguin was furious. "Are you cursing me to death? I'm obviously giving you paper money, so that you can live better after you die," Bai Ye said. Taking a long breath, the penguin said, "Okay, tell me what you mean." "Didn't I already tell you, I'll give you paper money?" Bai Ye said. "You think I'm going to die?" the penguin asked, seeming to have restrained the anger just now. Bai Ye continued to tear the paper money and said, "If you publish his identity, Bruce Wayne will basically have two choices. 1. Give up the identity of Batman and leave from now on, and the second, give up the identity of Bruce Wayne and become Batman from now on." Hearing the second choice, Penguin felt a chill. A Batman who was focusing on dealing with them. Thinking about it, he felt that his future would never be bright. But the first option seems a bit tempting. Without Batman, wouldn't Gotham City belong to them from now on? Before giving up his identity as Batman, Bruce Wayne is likely to give up his previous principles and play a big game. Bai Ye looked at the penguin with a malicious smile and said, "If he intends to kill, you can die a few times. It's also possible not to do that, isn't it? He won't give up his principles." "Well, then Batman will have an heir." Bai Ye said. "Will this heir be the same as Batman?" Penguin didn't speak, he frowned. He wasn't stupid. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com was just a little overwhelmed at first. Now that he thinks about it carefully, he has to admit that what the kid in front of him said makes sense. One is an unfamiliar enemy that may be more dangerous, or an outcome that may result in direct death. In contrast, Batman, the old adversary whom the penguins hated, suddenly became amiable. "Do you know what happened tonight?" Bai Ye's words interrupted Penguin's thoughts. "Hey!" Penguin looked blankly at Bai Ye, and then came to his senses after being stunned for a while. "It's not clear yet, it has nothing to do with me. Why, do you want to join in the fun?" "I want to see if there are any opportunities to trade with people. I am a businessman," Bai Ye said. "I have never seen such a strange businessman as you," said the penguin. "Ha!" Bai Ye chuckled lightly. He didn't know what would happen tonight, although Bai Ye knew something about the world. But that's just a little bit of understanding. For example, who are the guys who hang out in Gotham City, and what is the general origin of their personality? That's all, there's not much more in-depth understanding. The world itself is chaotic. As for the development of the timeline and the plot, even Bai Ye's superficial understanding knows that for this world, the so-called plot, timeline, etc. are used to destroy and molest. Half an hour later, Bai Ye got a black umbrella that was much heavier than ordinary umbrellas, as well as a small suitcase, and lived in the place arranged by Penguin. Penguin was curious about him, who suddenly appeared and knew the true identity of Batman. When Bai Ye asked him to arrange a place for him to stay for one night, he naturally accepted it. Only the next morning, when the penguin was going to look for Bai Ye, he found that this mysterious guy had disappeared without a trace. Neither the surveillance outside the room nor the subordinates found any traces of this person left behind, nor could they find a way for him to leave. He just disappeared into the room, and his elusiveness was about to catch up with Batman. How did he go? Are you all blind? You don't even know anything. Or, like Batman, he succeeded in making you blind. The penguin growled angrily at his subordinates. The penguin's subordinates were scolded bloody, and they shrank there and didn't dare to make a sound. It wasn't until one of Penguin's secretary arrived that he calmed down the penguin's anger a little. The penguin was so angry, of course, not only because of Bai Ye's mysterious disappearance, but after he went back last night, he thought about it and found that he did not take much advantage of this transaction with Bai Ye. Knowing the true identity of Batman actually didn't help Penguin that much. The reason why secrets are secrets is that they cannot be known to many other people. The Penguin couldn't have told the madman in Gotham City that Bruce Wayne was under the Batman mask. He wanted to hide it and only take it out when necessary. However, the embarrassing thing is that the Penguin can't think of the benefit of knowing this secret for the time being. He couldn't take this secret against Batman. What would he do if Batman knew about it? The Penguin thought it was more likely that this guy ran over and beat himself up to amnesia to solve the matter. No, he fell into a coma with a desperate blow, and after an unknown period of time, he woke up from prison or hospital with body pains. Facing the usual process after Batman, Penguin didn't like it at all. Penguin didn't dare to shoot Batman at will. If he wanted to kill him, he still had to consider the subsequent impact. The most embarrassing thing in the world is this: Gotham City can have no Batman, but if Bruce Wayne dies in Gotham City, the Wayne Group is in turmoil, and for Gotham City, it is no less than a disaster. If other criminals may have the idea that I'm going to destroy Gotham, then Penguin is absolutely impossible. His basic business is in Gotham City, and Gotham City is there, and he is the arrogant underworld tycoon Oswald Chesterfield Copperpot. The other party told him that the price of his identity as Batman was not low. Of course, it was not enough to make the Penguin feel that he had been fooled and deceived. It's always a good thing to have a secret in your hands. The reason why he wanted to find Baya was because the Penguin still thought that he could extract other benefits from Baya, but he didn't expect that the other party would suddenly disappear under his eyelids. No wonder the Penguins are so angry. Where did Baya go? He just returned to his original world. As a first-level agent, he cannot stay in other worlds for a long time. Every time he teleports to other worlds, Baya can stay in that world for 24 hours, standard time, and at the 12th hour, Baya can choose to advance leave. If you want to teleport again, from the moment you come back, you have to wait 72 standard hours, which is 3 days. White Knight race, human status, first-level agent of the Rod of Power and Wealth Equity Value, 100.00005. This is the current state of Baya. The transaction completed with the Penguin allowed Baya to obtain 100 points of wealth. Black. Baya secretly said in his heart. To be promoted to the second-level agent, you need to accumulate 1000 wealth points, the progress is 10%, and 0.00005 points of wealth have been ignored. Hay's voice sounded. What are the functions of power and wealth? Baya asked. The benefits of being a high-level manual are also reflected in Baya's gradual acquisition of wealth value. You don't need to experiment again and again, just reading the manual is enough. Influence teleports the world, prolongs the stay time, and transforms wealth. Hay said. How does it affect me? Can I freely choose the world? Baya asked. Hay's voice was still cold and mechanical. For a certain amount of wealth, you can teleport several times to fix it. You can only choose the last teleport world. Oh, then I have to go to Gotham City next time. How much wealth do I need to pay? Consume 50 wealth points and perform 5 fixed world teleportations, which cannot be changed. Hay said, the consumption of wealth points is not static. After 5 times, you need to consume 500 wealth points to continue to fix 5 times. Is that so? Baya said, how about extending the stay? 1 point of wealth value can be extended by a standard time, and you can return to the current main world at will during the extended time. Will the return be disturbed? Returning will be disturbed by powerful forces. Hay said. How strong? Baya asked a nonsensical question that was difficult to answer. Fortunately, Hay has no feelings, and will not have any emotional fluctuations because of Baya's questions. He simply replied, it can't be quantified. What about the last wealth transformation? Mutual conversion of currencies recognized in different and similar civilization systems. Hay said, and asked a question, whether it consumes 10.00005 wealth points to convert the existing currency into the legal currency of the main world. Of course, Bai Yi's return is not empty-handed. The umbrella he got from the penguin trade was still $100,000, which was barely considered a small item, and he successfully brought it back. What kind of method? Bai Ye asked. It can be converted into 500,000 Huaxia coins in the main world, and you can choose cash or electronic currency mode. Note that excessive wealth conversion will affect the stability of the original economic system, and more wealth value needs to be consumed to stabilize. Well, leave it for now and talk about it later. Bai Ye collected the money from the penguin. He was not short of money. Bai Ye has a bank card under his name that can be used normally. Since Bai Ye has a tendency to recover, his family will put a lot of living expenses into it every month. The Bai family will not be stingy with this money. If you were really stingy, Bai Ye wouldn't be living in this sanatorium. Of course, it can't be said that he is very concerned about Bai Ye, and his attitude is still quite cold. What Bai Ye wanted to say about this was that it was really good. He didn't care about the family's attitude towards him, whether he gave money or not. Bai Ye didn't care. On the contrary, if they really want to accept Bai Ye, hope that he will be discharged from the hospital and take him home, then Bai Ye will feel troublesome. His goal is to go to the heavens, the world and the endless world to do all kinds of things. No, it is a good deal, and it is not as convenient as in a sanatorium at home. As a senior patient, Bai Ye did not receive much attention. As long as Bai Ye doesn't make any noise by himself, he will not deliberately have medical staff come to check Bai Ye's recent state. Leaving the magical umbrella in the room, Bai Ye happily left the room, went to the restaurant to eat a delicious and rich breakfast, and then returned to the room to put together the puzzles scattered on the glass coffee table. Soon, Bai Ye completed the last few pieces of the puzzle, but the back was still facing up, and the content on the front could not be seen. At this moment, the door of the room was knocked, and Song Yin's voice came, "Bai Ye, are you inside?" Bai Ye walked over and opened the door. Song Yin didn't rush in, but first looked up and down Bai Ye's eyes to see if he was different from yesterday's state, then walked to the window, opened the curtains, and let the dazzling sunlight cast into the room. Bai Ye's eyes narrowed. He didn't like such dazzling sunlight. "You should go out in the sun more." Song Yin's tone was a little strong. She seemed to plan to have a good chat with Bai Ye to see if he could correct his strange thoughts. Obviously, from Song Yin's point of view, although Bai Ye is no longer the autistic person he used to be, he is still a patient. In a sense, this is true. Sitting on the sofa next to the coffee table, Song Yin motioned for Bai Ye to sit down as well. "You can sit too." She didn't plan to let Bai Ye go to the consultation room or something. In the room, Bai Ye is obviously more relaxed. However, Song Yin's actions still showed the dominant position she wanted to achieve. It would be bad if she was taken into the ditch by Bai Ye like last night. "Okay, Dr. Wang," Bai Ye said and sat down. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Bai Ye, my surname is Song. Song Yin corrected Bai Ye's mistake seriously. "Oh." Bai Ye nodded, not sure if he had listened to it. "How's it going?" Song Yin used an innocuous opening remark, but she was interrupted by Bai Ye before she could finish her words. "Dr. Li, let's trade." Bai Ye looked at Song Yin and said with a smile. "What?" Song Yin was stunned for a moment, then asked, "What deal?" "Help me open a store. I don't know how to open a store." Bai Ye looked a little excited, with a feeling of "I am a genius to think of this." Obviously, this was not a thoughtful proposal, but a whim. "Just do it." "Shop?" Song Yin frowned slightly. During this short period of time, Bai Ye seemed to have made up his mind, and said confidently, "Yes, I said that part-time work is impossible, so I want to be the boss." Facing Bai Ye, who was full of confidence, Song Yin stretched out her hand and rubbed her brows. She seemed a little tired, what kind of store is that, what's the main business? I didn't think about it. It's better to be the kind that is omnipotent and can sell anything. Bai Ye looked like it was a matter of course. It's really difficult to communicate. Song Yin secretly said in her heart, keeping a smile on her face, if you just open a store, you shouldn't deal with me on this matter. Hey! Bai Ye looked at Song Yin. Does this count as rejecting his deal? But this is also normal. This is just an ordinary transaction proposed by Bai Ye, and ordinary transactions are not guaranteed to be established. The other party has the right to refuse. Actually, your family will come to see you today. Song Yin said. After chatting with Bai Ye last night, Song Yin contacted Bai Ye's house. In Song Yin's opinion, Bai Ye's state, rather than letting him stay in the small world of the nursing home, it is better to let him go out and have more contact with the outside world. It is more conducive to his recovery to become a normal social person. Oh! Bai Ye nodded. So, if you plan to open a store, it's best to ask your family to help, Song Yin said. Bai Ye's family came very quickly, earlier than Song Yin imagined. After half an hour, a few people met in a room similar to a living room. Song Yin chatted for a while, then left first, leaving the space for Bai Ye and the man opposite Bai Ye, Bai Jinchenj. This person is also the boss of Jinchenj Group, who controls this group that is famous in Chengdu and even in China. The main project of Jinchenj Group is real estate, and it also takes care of some other businesses. Bai Jinchenj is the helm of Jinchenj Group, but he is not Bai Ye's father, but Bai Ye's uncle. As for Bai Ye's parents, they died many years ago. When the original Jinchenj just started, it was not called Jinchenj, but Jingguo. Bai Ye's father, Bai Jingguo, is the founder and helmsman of Jinchenj. Of course, Bai Jinchenj also has a place in it. It can barely be regarded as two brothers starting a business together. Later, it developed slowly, and everything was in good shape. When it was about to soar into the sky, Bai Ye suddenly got autism. For the sake of the child, Bai Jingguo almost gave up everything he had originally, and handed over many things of the group to his younger brother. He and his wife took Bai Ye everywhere to seek medical treatment, while handling some things remotely. He was unfortunately killed in a car accident, but Bai Ye was lucky to survive. After a period of time, Jinguo also changed its name to Jinchenj, and finally developed into today's Jinchenj Group. Is your illness really cured? Bai Jinchenj looked at Bai Ye and asked. Who are you? Bai Ye looked at Bai Jinchenj and asked. An extremely embarrassed expression suddenly appeared on Bai Jinchenj's face. In fact, he is not the kind of ruthless person. In fact, the relationship between the two brothers is very good. After Bai Jingguo's accident, Bai Jinchenj took Bai Ye by his side, hoping that Bai Ye would get better. However, as time passed, Bai Ye showed no signs of getting better. Coupled with the growing career, and the Mediterranean Sea becoming more and more obvious, Bai Jinchenj really has no extra energy to take care of an autistic child. Therefore, Bai Ye was sent to this sanatorium rather than entrusting the role of a nanny. The sanatorium was a better choice for the situation at the time. However, after all, it was no filial son before the bed for a long time. As time passed, Bai Jinchenj's concern for Bai Ye gradually diminished. The last time the two met, it seemed like a year ago, and their relationship inevitably cooled down. I'm your uncle, Bai Jinchenj, don't you have any impression at all? Bai Jinchenj stood up, walked to Bai Ye and said. Bai Ye stretched out a finger and shook it twice. My uncle? I know, he's bald. Hearing Bai Ye's words, Bai Jinchenj almost spit out a mouthful of old blood. Is the symbol of his feelings in his nephew's heart a bald man? Don't look at Bai Jinchenj's unrestrained and extraordinary now, he has the charm of a mature man in every gesture, and the standard image of a successful middle-aged uncle. But before, he was a standard Mediterranean, probably overthinking it. I had a hair transplant. Bai Jinchenj said, pointing to his face, do you really have no impression? At the same time, regret and guilt surged in his heart, and he cared too little about his nephew. I think about it. Bai Ye also stood up, reaching out and brushing Bai Jinjin's hair back. Oh, I remember, at this height of the hairline, you are really my uncle. After a while, Bai Ye clapped his hands violently and said happily, long time no see, uncle. Haven't seen you for a long time. With a gloomy face, Bai Jinjin turned around and sat back on the sofa, combing his messy hair. The Mediterranean Sea, the constantly receding and rising hairline, and the balding crisis of the middle-aged man have always been the eternal pain in his heart. And Bai Ye recognized himself by his pain. Bai Jinjin suddenly felt that it was not bad for Bai Ye to stay in this sanatorium all the time. I heard from the doctor that you have recovered now, and judging from your performance just now the same is true. Of course, as the leader of a large group, Bai Jinjin could not be easily affected by emotions. Soon, he returned to normal and said in a calm and magnetic voice, but it was a little difficult to say the last 4 words. Dr. Song's suggestion is to discharge you from the hospital and get in touch with the outside world, so that you can better integrate into the society. I also have the same idea. What do you think? Bai Jinjin said with an attitude of equal consultation. Roughly arranged the next life of Bai Ye. I want to open a shop and be the boss. Bai Ye said. What? Bai Jinjin was stunned for a moment. It's like this. Bai Ye told Bai Jinjin the plan he just said to Song Yin, and Bai Jinjin's face was aching. Why do you feel that communication is more difficult than before? Uncle, let's trade, you help me open the store, and I'll give you the money. Bai Ye said. You don't need the money. If you have a store, let me help you open it. Bai Jinjin waved his hand and said. For Bai Jinjin, opening a store similar to a grocery store is just a little effort, not a matter at all. Bai Jinjin wouldn't care even if he lost a shop to Bai Ye's chaos. Even if he lost money, Bai Jinjin could afford it. How much could a grocery store lose? Bai Jinjin still feels guilty about Bai Ye's nephew. Bai Jinjin doesn't care about this level of nonsense and tossing. If you have anything, you can take it to the store and sell it, and you can also relieve the outside world a lot. That's not bad. Bai Jinjin said. Okay, thank you uncle. Bai Ye said, and he also reached the 3rd transaction, gaining 5 points of wealth. But because Bai Jinjin reached a deal with Bai Ye unconditionally, in fact, Bai Ye could choose not to make a deal and directly let Bai Jinjin help him open a shop. But for the sake of safety, Bai Ye's choice is still to trade, to ensure the smooth progress of things, and to get a certain amount of power and wealth. Why not do it? In addition to opening a shop, Bai Jinjin also wanted Bai Ye to come home to live, and then arrange for him to go to school, but Bai Ye refused. Bai Jinjin didn't force it, and planned to take it slowly. Now, let Bai Ye live in the environment he is already familiar with for a while. Bai Jinjin's work efficiency is very high. In less than 3 days, someone sent some documents to prove that Bai Ye also owns a store of his own. Moreover, the main business scope and business items are quite wide. Although it is impossible to meet the universal requirements of Bai Ye, it is quite good. In addition, Bai Jinjin also brought a mobile phone to Bai Ye to facilitate the connection between the two. Although others didn't come, they still showed the elders' concern for the younger on the phone. Bai Ye also congratulated Bai Jinjin on the recovery of the Mediterranean Sea, and at the same time expressed concern about his increasingly receding and rising hairline. The dialogue between the two sides was carried out in a friendly, peaceful, and warm atmosphere, but in the end Bai Jinjin hung up a little too fast. But after all, he was a busy person, so Bai Ye naturally forgave him very generously. Time soon came to the time when Bai Ye could teleport again. In view of the possibility that the teleport world may be a real virtual world, Bai Ye has made up for all kinds of knowledge in the past few days, and came to the correct conclusion of East Malaysia's Little 3, Sui Ke Bai Chi, if you are lucky enough to come here in the future to that world. He will definitely educate those young boys and girls who are not doing more things, and tell them that only trading is the right way in life. What comes first? Me first. In front of transactions, everything is a paper tiger. Consume 50 wealth points and send the world to Gotham City 5 times. Bai Ye was carrying $100,000 and the umbrella in his hand, planning to go to Gotham City a few more times. There, the smell of a lot of deals pervaded. Since the rod of power and wealth has chosen such a suitable world, Bai Ye certainly won't give up just like that. Soon, Bai Ye disappeared into the room. Hey, Mr. Kobit? It's me, Ziobai. Yes, it's Ziobai. What Ziobai? What the fuck? I can't even hear my voice. I'm Bai Ye. Didn't we trade? I threw paper money for you. In a public phone booth in Gotham City, Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Bai Ye said while holding the receiver, with a rather dissatisfied tone. The penguin on the other side was speechless for a while. They had indeed traded, but he did not know Bai Ye's name, and it was even more impossible to hear his voice. It's really slow. Half an hour later, Bai Ye got into Penguin's car again. Is there any special news to tell me this time? The penguin looked at Bai Ye and asked, tacitly didn't mention Bai Ye's disappearance last time. Of course it will continue to be a transaction. Bai Ye said, I am a businessman. What deal? What else do you have that I'm interested in? Penguin is indeed very interested. Last time it was Batman's true identity. What will the other party show this time? Or, the penguin is very interested in White Knight itself. After Bai Ye left, he investigated Bai Ye's identity, but he didn't expect to find anything, which shows that the other party's origin is extraordinary, and there may be a huge and terrifying force behind it. No, I want to know the whereabouts of some people. Bai Ye said. You want to know the whereabouts of some people? The penguin repeated and asked, whose? The leader of the Assassin Alliance. What's that what's it called? Bai Ye looked at the penguin and asked. Penguin has a saying Mom sells batches, which is like a stick in his throat, I don't know if it should be said. Looking at your appearance, don't you know him? Bai Ye asked. I've heard of this organization. Penguin pondered, evil and powerful. Don't you feel ashamed when you say that other organizations are evil and powerful? What about your dignity as a boss? Bai Ye interrupted Penguin. You know the shit, said the penguin, they're a bunch of utter horrors. Crazy. I'm not like them. It seems to make sense. Living in such a place is really hard for you. Bai Ye patted the penguin on the shoulder sympathetically. The penguin suddenly felt a little sad. Is he easy? Because of his deformed appearance, he was looked down upon since he was a child, and finally he took this road, and then a Batman came out, beat him every 3 or 5 times and sent him to prison. He suffered heavy losses. Then there are not many of those criminal colleagues who are normal, and it is difficult to find a partner. Why is life so difficult? Don't be sad, it doesn't match your personality. Bai Ye interrupted the penguins, looking up at a 45-degree angle. Is there any whereabouts of the Assassin League? If so, we will make a deal. I can look for them, and if they're really in Gotham, I can find them, the penguin said. However, what can you pay? Here. Bai Ye took out a large amount of US dollars quite tyrannically and threw it out. Isn't this my money? The penguin looked at Bai Ye and said. Bah, you shameless. How come this is your money, isn't it mine? Bai Ye said, I got it from a trade. This money, of course, is the $100,000 that penguin gave to Bai Ye. Okay, your money. The penguin put away the money and said, okay, if I find the whereabouts of the Assassin League, I will notify you as soon as possible. How can I contact you then? Don't contact me specially. Bai Ye said. Well, you came to me, said the penguin. No, I'm out of money. We've traded twice. It's an old business. It's not too much to give a place to live, right? Bai Ye patted the penguin on the shoulder. Penguin stared at Bai Ye, and it took a long time to say a word. It's also your luck to meet me. Haha. Bai Ye smiled without saying a word. What the penguin said means that in the huge Gotham City, there are still a few people in him who will sit down and talk with Bai Ye like this. If it was a madman like a clown, they wouldn't care about interests and the like. At the beginning, the clown and Harley Quinn pushed a car full of tobacco into the sea because of fun, which made Penguin very upset. The penguin would not do such unreasonable things that would not benefit him at all. And Bai Ye smiled without saying a word, because, even if he met the madman Joker, he could make the other party obediently trade. The people of the Assassin League are hidden, and it is not easy to find them. On the night of the second day, that is, Bai Ye began to consume wealth, and after the 26th hour of staying in Gotham City, Penguin found Bai Ye, saying that he did find that there were people from the Assassin League haunting Gotham City, and he found it. Their foothold. I didn't expect that these people actually used Gotham Hospital as their destination. Penguin said to Bai Ye while teasing the bird resting on his finger, this time, our transaction is complete. That's right, it's done. Bai Ye nodded. In this transaction, he also gained 100 points of wealth. Up to now, Bai Ye has a total of 155 wealth points and the 0.00005 points have been temporarily ignored. Most of the time, the hospital is more lively. Neither most medical staff nor those patients would have imagined that a rather extreme organization has taken this place as their stronghold in Gotham City. On the surface, it really doesn't seem that this hospital has any connection with the Assassin League. Anyway, Bai Ye wandered around here and couldn't find any traces related to the Assassin League. It's a little troublesome. Bai Ye shook his umbrella twice, but couldn't find anyone, how to trade. After thinking for a while, Bai Ye walked towards the security room. Since he couldn't find anyone, let others come to him. Hey, entry is not allowed here. The security room has the functions of monitoring, broadcasting, and even closing and opening some facilities. Naturally, idlers are not allowed to enter. When Bai Ye was only approaching, a uniformed security guard came over and blocked Bai Ye. I know, but I got separated from my father-in-law. Bai Ye said, can you broadcast for me? Okay. It didn't look like he was here to make trouble. The security guard would naturally not refuse such a reasonable request. What's your father-in-law's name? My father-in-law is a little bit demented. Bai Ye said, he can't remember his name, but he knows the relationship between my name and me. He only needs to broadcast Bruce's father-in-law and let him come here to meet me. Bruce? Yes, Bruce Wayne. Bai Ye said with a smile. Hey, kid, are you sure you're not joking? The security guard frowned and looked at Bai Ye. In other places, Bruce Wayne is just a common name, but in Gotham City, it is different. Almost everyone knows who Bruce Wayne is. Of course, I'm really called Bruce Wayne, and I'm not the same person. Bai Ye spread his hands and said helplessly. Okay. If you dare to lie to me, I'll let you taste the power. Before leaving, the security guard did not forget to threaten Bai Ye, but soon the radio sounded. According to Bai Ye's request, I hope Bruce Wayne's somewhat demented father-in-law will come here to meet his son-in-law. After a few minutes, clear footsteps came, but it didn't sound like the footsteps of a demented old man, but the crisp sound of high heels stepping on the ground. Bruce. Before seeing him, he heard a slightly puzzled voice, and then, a tall girl walked around the corner. Hi, miss, this gentleman calls himself Bruce Wayne. He said he got separated from his demented father-in-law. Do you know him? After the broadcast, he came out again and asked the security guard who was staring at Bai Ye. The girl took a deep look at Bai Ye, nodded and said, yes, that's it, I found my father, come with me. Are these two husband and wife? The security guard looked at the two who were leaving and felt that the two were not compatible. The kid with the umbrella, who looks exactly the age of a high school student, doesn't look like a married person at all, or does he marry such a mature, resolute-looking woman who feels like a strong woman? Could it be that she was a little white face who was being raised? That body is not strong at all. Is it possible that such little white faces are becoming popular now? Of course, the cranky security guard didn't know that after the girl took Bai Ye to a quiet and unoccupied room, she immediately shot, and she took out a dagger from nowhere and put it on Bai Ye's neck. It was only after she was put on the shelf that a doubtful expression flashed in the girl's eyes, as if it was too easy to subdue the other party. "Who are you, the new Robin? Bruce asked you to come." The girl looked at Bai Ye and asked several questions in a row. Not many people know about the complicated relationship between Batman and the Assassin League. There are only a few people, and they are all involved. The person in front of him who was able to make that move was obviously an insider, and it was impossible for the Assassin Alliance to reveal the news to others. Then, this slightly thin boy must have something to do with Batman. At this age, it may be the new Robin, but his skills are really bad. Talia kept analyzing in her heart, and put down the dagger on Bai Ye's neck. She had already seen that the opponent's fighting skills were a complete mess. Not to mention a dagger, even if he doesn't use his hands, but only uses one pair of legs, Thalia can beat him until he can't find the north. "You are the lover that Bruce never forgets." Bai Ye didn't answer, looking at the woman in front of him and asked. He knew that Batman had a complicated relationship with a daughter of the leader of the Assassin League, who was estranged, fell in love and killed each other. The other party also gave birth to a child for him, but Bai Ye didn't know exactly what this woman looked like and what her name was. Now it seems that this is the woman in front of her. "Do you remember it?" Thalia's focus was obviously elsewhere, and at the same time, he also determined that Bai Ye was Bruce's person, and coupled with Bai Ye's incomparably bad skills, reading www.yukanshu. The vigilance in Com's heart has basically been put down. "I'm here to find your father," Bai Ye said. "What did Bruce ask you to find him for? Didn't he ask you to find me?" Thalia asked. "No." Bai Ye shook his head. "A transaction." "Deal? What deal?" Thalia's curiosity was still quite strong. "The transaction with your father has nothing to do with you. If you are interested, you can go to Bruce after you bring me to your father," Bai Ye said. Thalia gave Bai Ye a displeased look. "Now I believe you are the new Robin. Your annoying tone is exactly the same as Bruce's sometimes. But your skills are too bad. Bruce hasn't started yet. Train you." "I'm not from the martial arts school," Bai Ye said. "Come with me," Thalia said. "Can I ask the purpose of your coming here?" Bai Ye asked after Talia. Thalia kept walking and didn't look back. "Is this important? If my father wants to endanger Gotham City, wouldn't Bruce stop my father? Just ask casually, maybe there is a place to trade," Bai Ye said. Thalia's footsteps paused for a moment, and then started again. Soon, they came to the stronghold of the Assassin Alliance, which was built underground at Gotham Hospital. It was still a rather dim and spacious room. At the end of the room, there is a chair, a man who looks a little old, but his eyes are emitting a strange green light, giving a feeling of extreme danger, sitting there, with a hook-like look. He looks at the man who followed Talia. White Knight. The leader of the League of Assassins, Rasl Ghul. Rasl Ghul, also known as the head of the devil, the master of ninjas and so on. This man who looks a little thin and has entered old age is actually over 700 years old. And what made him live from more than 700 years ago to the present is also the purpose of Bai Ye's visit, the Pool of Lazarus. This is a kind of magical spring water, which has the ability to reanimate the dead and can heal all wounds on the body. Even death, as long as the time is not too long, it can still be resurrected. Lars lived by the Pool of Lazarus for countless years. But this is not without cost, although frequent exposure to this pool has enabled him to gain endurance, strength, speed, and various physical abilities far beyond ordinary people. But it also drove Lars mad. Not only for Lars, anyone who uses the Lazarus pool will eventually perish. Even Thalia once said that she was very worried that one day, what came out of the pool was no longer his father, but a demon, a monster. From Lars' eyes with a strange green light, it can be seen that Thalia's worries are not unfounded. "Boy, Bruce asked you to trade with me." Lars looked at Baya and said. His voice seemed to come from a broken bellows. It sounds like it's not far from the next time he uses the Lazarus pool to bring back to life. "Yes, a transaction," Baya said. "Ha ha." Lars sneered and said, "When did Bruce play this game? Or did he finally figure it out and decide to join our great cause?" The great cause of the Assassin League is to destroy all human beings, because Lars feels that human beings are the pests of the world. The second disease is not scary, but the second disease that has lived for a long time and has executive and destructive power is very scary. Lars is such a dangerous and terrible secondary disease, and the Penguin's evaluation of the Assassin League is quite correct. "I want the spring water of the Lazarus pool." Baya looked at Lars and said. When Lars heard this, he laughed. "Why, could it be that Bruce was seriously injured and couldn't recover? You bring him to see me. If he is willing to join us, I can reserve the position of the leader for him." Lars admires Bruce Wayne, the Batman, and intends to use him as his successor. And his beloved daughter has a relationship with Bruce. For Lars, it would be great if Bruce can join the Assassin League. It's a pity that so far, both of them have different ways of conspiring against each other. Lars is unwilling to kill Bruce because he cherishes his talent and his daughter. Batman also has no way to completely solve the huge trouble of Lars because of his principle of no murder. The two have killed each other passionately until now, but they have never lost their lives, but many innocent people have been killed and injured. Residents of Gotham City have a set of life-saving rules if they want to live well. For example, the first time in Bayat, everyone's reaction when they saw the Batman logo in the night sky. This is the real feedback from years of experience and lessons of blood and tears. Lars is undoubtedly quite happy now, because he saw that Bruce Wayne is bowing his head to him. Whether it is sincere or not, once the ceremony of joining begins, Bruce will not be allowed to choose. "Your father really seems to have Alzheimer's." Baya looked at Talia with sympathy. Thalia didn't speak, but the expression on her face was egg pain. As for Lars' state, of course, she knew that even if it wasn't Alzheimer's, it was still sliding towards the abyss of madness. But is this something you, an outsider, can say casually? Talia's eyes swept around Baya's body, as if she was looking for a better place to put the knife. Baya ignored Thalia's gaze and took a few steps forward. There was a sound of a sharp blade unsheathing in the darkness, but after Lars raised his hand, no dangerous assassin appeared to block Baya's pace. Just kidding, even if Lars is in a relatively weak state now, why would he be afraid of Baya, a helpless little devil? Probably what I just said wasn't clear. Baya walked up to Lars, then I'll repeat it again, it's me, I want to trade with you, I want the spring water from the pool of Lazarus, got up from the bulging clothes and took out 2 emptied bottles of mineral water. Fill these 2 bottles. Ridiculous. All of them, including Lars, came up with this idea. What is the pool of Lazarus, the spring water that can give people eternal life? If it weren't for the serious side effects, it would be a priceless treasure. Even if there were side effects, it would be a treasure that many people flock to. The boy in front of him wants the spring water of Lazarus pool with the gesture of walking to the roadside laughing shop to buy drinks. That's not the attitude. What do these 2 bottles of mineral water mean? The label on it is not torn off. Isn't this the kind of bargain you can buy for 2.5 cents on the market? One of the bottles still had residue left in the bottom of the bottle. When Lars and those assassins took out the 2 bottles of mineral water in Bay, Their hearts were shocked, not shocked, but a great humiliation. If it weren't for the power of the staff of power and wealth, Lars would have drawn his sword at this moment. Very good. Lars squeezed out a voice that seemed to come from the Nine Serenities hell. Then what can you give? What do you have to pay to get the spring water of the Lazarus pool? There was no definite answer to this. Huge financial wealth? Money can make characters like Penguin move, but for old monsters like Lars, it's just a number. Besides, even if Lars offered the price, Baya couldn't come up with that huge astronomical figure. As for other things for Lars, what he wants most is to destroy mankind. It is best to conquer Batman and destroy mankind with him. This is also impossible for Baya to do. Therefore, Baya will give other things that Lars can't refuse. Putting down the 2 bottles of mineral water, Baya reached out and fumbled twice in his trouser pocket, and took out a 5-cent coin. That's it. Ha 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 ha. When the anger reached the extreme, Lars laughed instead. His voice was as sharp as a night owl, revealing boundless rage. Boy, you are the most courageous person I have ever met, even more courageous than Bruce. Lars looked at Baya and said, so, are you ready to die next? Oh, so, are you going to refuse this deal? Baya looked at Lars and said without the slightest panic. Oh, of course. While speaking, Lars stretched out his hand and grabbed a sharp blade behind him. Pity. Baya laughed, you can't refuse this deal. Following his words, a black scepter appeared between Baya and Lars out of thin air. Released the umbrella in his hand, Baya grabbed the scepter and patted the ground slightly. The bottom end of the scepter touched the ground, and time and space seemed to have a stomp at this moment. The grim look on Lars's face froze during this moment, and then became strange. The scepter disappeared. Baya bent down slightly, grabbed the umbrella that had not completely fallen down, and threw the coin in the other hand towards Lars. Lars instantly reached out and grabbed the coin. Father! Not far away, Thalia took 2 steps forward in surprise, and then stopped at Lars's signal. At the moment when the scepter appeared just now, no one could see it clearly, only vaguely felt that something had changed, but it was unclear. Lars tightly grasped the coin in his hand, and was about to knead it into a ball. His emotions told him that he would draw a knife and chop the boy in front of him into 18 pieces. But his reason is telling him that the transaction has already started. He has taken the other party's coins, the transaction must be established, which cannot be violated, as if Lars himself is a man who keeps his word, follows the rules, and regards integrity as more than anything else. Behind this, Lars instinctively felt a great terror, vaguely vague and inexplicable. It's like how ordinary people feel when they face the vast and dark universe. This feeling of confusion made Lars a little impatient to complete this transaction, buying 22500 ml Lazarus Pool spring water for 5 cents. You are waiting here. Lars picked up the 2 mineral water bottles on the ground and stood up. This scene made the hidden assassins stunned. Their great leader actually agreed to this seemingly ridiculous deal? It's totally unreasonable. However, no matter how unreasonable it is impossible for these people to defy Lars' will. He said, it is an absolute order in the Assassin League. It's like the compulsory transaction ability used by Baya. Yes, the reason why Lars agreed to this deal was because Bai Chi initiated a trade invitation for him to force a deal. Lars couldn't refuse. From the very beginning, Baya didn't intend to make a normal, ordinary transaction with Lars. Baya didn't have any things in Baya's hands that could make Lars' heart move, and he was willing to exchange the spring water of the Lazarus Pool. The easiest way to get this magical spring is to make a forced transaction. As for why you don't want more, that's because what Baya can bring back is just a little bit, and even if you want more, Baya can't take it away. Of course, Baya has not thought about making a deal with Lars, such as a contract, and making him his slave. But after consulting with Hay, Baya found that he couldn't do it right now. It's not that the rod of power and wealth can't do it, but that Bai Yi's own level is not enough. To maintain this long-term compulsory transaction, you need to consume a huge amount of wealth. Therefore, Bai Ye can only settle for the next best thing and get the biggest wealth he can get so far. The accumulation of primitive capital is indeed and cruel. Looking at Lars' body, which seemed to be even older and crooked, Bai Ye sighed faintly. Although he didn't really want to do what he did and what he said, Bai Ye insisted that he must sigh like this in order to express his compulsiveness. It's more pretentious than pretentious. Life is alive, how can there be no pursuit? Bai Ye, who was very ambitious, stood quietly on the spot, completely ignoring the fierce gazes of the assassins in the darkness. Fear? Afraid? Just kidding, just now Bruce's demented father-in-law stared at him with his terrifying green eyes of forgiveness, and Bai Ye was not afraid. The boss doesn't care about Bai Ye, why would he care about the killing you look in the eyes of a group of trash fish? On the other hand, Thalia's eyes flashed with obscure meaning, and she didn't know what she was thinking. Speaking of which, the League of Assassins is not without relative normality, and it is not that the characters who are full of destroying all human beings, such as the two daughters of Lars, are not interested in things such as destroying all human beings. Soon, Lars, the second-ranked Demon King, walked back with 2 mineral water bottles filled with Lazarus spring water, and handed them over to Bai Ye. Facing the authenticity of this spring, Bai Ye was not worried at all. He took it and shook it twice, and put it into the red plastic bag he just took out of his pocket with satisfaction. So, is our deal done? Little bug, son. Lars looked at Bai Ye, the murderous aura from his whole body was already pouring out, and he couldn't stop it. In the surrounding darkness, assassins came out one by one, and the sharp blades in their hands were already aimed at Bai Ye. It only took a second for them to swarm up and nail the kid to the ground. Talia didn't speak, didn't stop what might happen next, but she also didn't do anything, she just sat on the sidelines. As long as Bai Ye confirms the completion of the transaction, Lars will let the little bug in front of him try what is called piercing pain. He wouldn't let Bai Ye die too easily. At this time, the drawbacks of forced transactions also appeared. What the rod of power and wealth maintains is the transaction itself, but not the two parties to the transaction. After the transaction was completed, Lars wanted to kill Bai Ye, and he did not violate the rules of the staff of power and wealth. Lars didn't regret it, nor did he want to take back the spring water of the Lazarus pool, he just simply wanted to kill Bai Ye after the transaction was over. Even, he wanted to use the 2 bottles of spring water from the Lazarus pool on Bai Ye, to ensure that Bai Ye felt the greatest pain before he died completely. After a normal transaction is over, it is naturally difficult for both parties to face each other with swords. But forcing the transaction, Bai Ye completed the transaction by pressing Lars' head. After the transaction was over, he was severely retaliated by Lars, which was normal. Lars stared at Bai Ye. As long as Bai Ye confirmed the completion of the transaction, a terrifying cold light flashed from the sharp blade in his hand. Even if Bai Ye wanted to delay, he couldn't delay for too long. Everything has already been in his hands, even if Bai Ye doesn't confirm, after a while, the transaction will also be confirmed and completed by itself. Looking at Lars, whose killing intent was already strong enough to materialize, and his eyes really glowed with a faint green light, Bai Ye felt a shadow called death approaching. This is an unprecedented experience. Instead of any panic, Bai Ye's face showed a strange and bright smile, as if he was enjoying the feeling of dancing on the tip of a knife, walking a tightrope on a cliff, and hanging his life by a thread. He let out a light breath, looked at Lars and said a word with a smile, "Yes." In an instant, the cold light flashed across the white night like lightning, seemingly illuminating the dark room. The next second, the hideous look on Lars' face became more intense. Because of the knife he was determined to get, he swung it empty. The position where Bai Ye was just now is now empty. The moment that boy spit out that word and Lars swung his knife, he disappeared without a trace. Lars' blade didn't even touch the corner of his shirt. What about others? Talia's eyes widened behind her. This was definitely not a trick to hide in the dark. The situation just now is that there is no way to go to heaven and earth, and there is no room to hide. He has gone. Lars nailed the sharp blade in his hand to the ground, right where Bai Ye had just disappeared. Go, investigate his identity and origin for me thoroughly. What about the night? Of course, he had already returned to his room in the sanatorium at this moment, and the excited smile on his face had not dissipated. When Bai Ye got the news of the Assassin League, his stay time had already passed. The reason why he could stay in Gotham City was because he was consuming his wealth. And during the period of consuming power and wealth to maintain his stay in other worlds, Bai Ye can return to his main world at any time. This is also the confidence that Bai Ye dares to make a forced transaction with Lars. Dancing on the tip of a knife, the feeling of life and death is indeed very exciting, but Bai Ye didn't intend to let himself die like this. Hey, how much wealth do I have now? Hanging the umbrella on the hook on the wall, and putting the spring water from the Lazarus pool on the bedside table, Bai Ye sat on the sofa and said, 1050 tuo. He quickly responded, the transaction just now has a value of 900 points. Oh, so 1 Lars is equal to 9 penguins. Bai Ye smiled. The dignified penguin suddenly became a unit value. Bai Ye's first transaction was with a taxi driver in Gotham City, and he obtained 0.00005 wealth value, which has been ignored by Bai Ye's request. If there is a small transaction in the future, it will be automatically superimposed until the accumulated wealth value reaches 1. Calculate when you click. Later, he made 2 transactions with the penguin, and obtained a total of 200 points of wealth. He made a transaction with his uncle Baijincheng and obtained 5 points of wealth. Fixed 5 teleport opportunities to the world where Gotham City is located, consuming 50 points of wealth. Before Bai Ye went to see Lars, Bai Ye had a total of 155 points of wealth. After the time was exceeded, Bai Ye spent a total of 3 points of power, staying in Gotham City for a while, plus the power gained from a forced transaction with Lars. Now Bai Ye has the 1052 points of wealth that He said. It has already met the requirements of a second-level agent. I am now a second-level agent. Bai Ye continued to ask, are there any new permissions or abilities? If you want to become a second-level agent, you don't need to consume 1000 points of wealth, but Bai Ye can become a second-level agent with more than 1000 points of wealth. After that, it will have no effect if the power value is consumed below 1000 points. Open the portable independent space, which can accommodate substances other than living bodies. The size is 5x5x5, 125 cubic meters. The space is in an absolutely static state, and all substances are retained in the state they entered. The number of normal transactions has been increased to 5 times in 24 hours, and the number of mandatory transactions will remain unchanged. The duration of teleportation to other worlds is 48 hours. You can choose to leave early in the 12th and 24th hours. Calculated from the return time, you can start the teleportation again after 48 hours. The voice of the black machine brought the places changed by the second-level agent one by one. There is no special change in Bai Ye's becoming a second-level agent. There is no physical shock, and there is no radiance. He just quietly increases his power, and the use of the staff of the scepter has a higher level of authority. Among them, the most interesting change for Bai Ye is the extra personal space. 125 cubic meters is not a small space, enough to hold a lot of things. How do I use it? Bai Ye asked, quietly becoming a second-level agent. He didn't have any special changes, and naturally he didn't know how to use this portable space. Please choose a fixed position for the entrance and exit of the space. He said. Left no, mouth. Bai Ye first glanced at his left hand, and then said with a strange smile on the corner of his mouth. Fixed. He said after a few seconds. At the same time, Bai Ye finally felt some changes. He felt that a black space seemed to be connected to him, and he could put non-living creatures no larger than the size of the space into it according to his will. Try it. He stood up again, walked to the bed, picked up the mineral water bottle containing the spring water of Lazarus Pool, and stuffed it into his mouth. When the bottle was close to the mouth, it twisted slightly and disappeared immediately. Bai Ye felt that there was an extra bottle of mineral water in the black space. After trying it, the bottle of mineral water was taken out again by Bai Ye, and appeared abruptly near Bai Ye's mouth. It seemed that it moved forward a little before falling and was caught by Bai Ye. It seems a bit interesting. Bai Ye kept trying until his mouth was a little sore before he stopped. Of course, this is just a subconscious action of Bai Ye. Even if he keeps his mouth tightly closed, he can also put things into the space and get close enough. It doesn't really matter whether you open your mouth or not. He put 2 bottles of spring water from the Lazarus Pool into the portable space, and Bai Ye didn't stop to take a rest. During the repeated experiments and attempts just now, he found a very interesting thing. Phenomenon. This phenomenon reminded him of part of the plot of a novel that he had inadvertently spotted when he was replenishing various related knowledge. If my guess is correct, it is really the mouth of the abyss, and the mouth cannon is invincible. With a malicious smile on Bai Ye's face, he took down the black umbrella hanging on the wall, then stabbed the tip of the umbrella toward his mouth, as if he was about to swallow an umbrella and commit suicide. Fortunately, there is no one else in the room. Otherwise, Bai Ye would have to take medicines and various mental treatments for a period of time. The umbrella given by the penguin was naturally included in the portable space by Bai Ye. Then, Bai Ye opened his mouth slightly and took out the umbrella again. However, the umbrella did not fall down like the spring water in the Lazarus Pool and was used by Bai Ye. The tip of the umbrella was facing the outside, and it flew out in front of him at the same speed as Bai Ye stabbed his mouth just now. After hitting the wall, it fell to the ground, and the heavy umbrella made a sound. There was also a small depression on the wall. That's it. Bai Ye laughed very happily, and the portable space will retain the state of the object entering the moment, that is to say, the kinetic energy of that moment is also preserved. When it is released again, this power will not disappear. It also caused the current situation. The portable space is not only a simple storage space, but Bai also gives it another function. It's really beneficial to read more books. Bai Ye's mouth is no longer an ordinary mouth, but a dangerous mouth of the abyss. Picking up the umbrella, Bai Ye pointed the tip of the umbrella at himself again, and then pulled the hidden trigger on the handle. The rather deafening sound of this body sounded, and a bullet was swallowed by Bai Ye into the portable space. The portable space is in a state of absolute stillness. Even if these bullets touch the Lazarus spring, they are just sticking together. Different substances will not interfere with each other. Bai Ye doesn't have to worry about breaking the water bottle with one shot. After 10 gunshots almost in a row, the bullets in this remodeled umbrella that can be used as a firearm have been shot by Bai Ye. If you want to add more, you can only find the old friend penguin. After doing this, Bai Ye went to take a bath with satisfaction, and soon fell asleep. The sound insulation effect of the room is very good, and Bai Ye is the first person to live on the first floor, so there is no need to care about the sound of gunfire just now attracting people. The time when Bai Ye entered Gotham City was originally in the evening. After staying for about 27 hours, it was already evening when he returned to the nursing home. I haven't appeared in front of people for a day, so I won't attract anyone's attention for the time being. After all, Bai Ye has recovered and has performed well in all aspects. It is impossible to look at Bai Ye like a child as before. At present, the management of Bai Ye in the sanatorium is still quite loose. Of course, if the time was a little longer, for example, if the restaurant staff didn't see Bai Ye for dinner for 2 days, I'm afraid they would come to the door. Early the next morning, Bai Ye was eating breakfast in the restaurant when Song Yin sat down in front of him with a plate. Bai Ye. Song Yin said hello. Thank you, Dr. Wang. Bai Ye grinned at Song Yin, then picked up the white porridge from Song Yin's plate and poured it into his mouth. The white porridge was drinked by him. Be careful with the heat. Song Yin didn't expect Bai Ye's sudden move, so she reminded instinctively. It's okay. Bai Ye smiled and said that he was not burnt. Of course he wasn't burnt. He swallowed the white porridge into his personal space and used it as food storage, ready for emergencies. That's good. Song Yin breathed a sigh of relief, and immediately felt that something was wrong. No, what the hell? She stared at Bai Ye angrily. She didn't come to bring porridge to Bai Ye. Bai Ye looked at Song Yin and said, Dr. Wang, are you looking at me like this to propose to me? Please be tall. Song Yin finally couldn't hold back her anger and burst out. Then he attracted the attention of people around him who were also eating breakfast. Pharaoh next door, who has a manic disorder, suddenly became excited, and whispered in his mouth, curse, fight. He couldn't fight or scold himself, but watching others do it was a pleasant vent. Song Yin let out a sigh of relief, picked up the bun in front of her and took a bite, as if she thought it was Bai Ye. Since you're not going to propose to me, why are you looking at me so madly so early in the morning? I've read books, don't lie to me, you must be interested in me. Bai Ye looked at Song Yin, said confidently. Song Yin, who had just taken a bite of the steamed bun, almost choked to death. She hurriedly grabbed the bowl next to her, but it was so light that she almost threw the bowl out, realizing that the white porridge had just been drank by Bai Ye. Fortunately, Bai Ye handed over the milk that was just opened next to him at the right time. Song Yin took a sharp gulp, swallowed the buns with milk, and then put both down, looking at Bai Ye with a serious face. First, my surname is Song, not Wang, nor Li. Don't make a mistake again. Oh. Bai Ye looked very well behaved and nodded seriously. This action made Song Yin's anger dissipate in half. It's only been half a year since Bai Ye's recovery in front of him. He's just a child who doesn't understand anything. As a doctor, how can I be so irritable? It's not good. What book are you reading that contains all this messy content? Song Yin's voice became gentle as water. This. Bai Ye took out the mobile phone that Bai Jinchinch bought, unlocked it skillfully, pulled out an ebook and handed it to Song Yin. You already use your cell phone. Song Yin took the cell phone in surprise. Of course, I'm a genius. Bai Ye said proudly. Song Yin glanced at the phone screen. The ebook in it was called Teach You How to Find a Girlfriend. A lot of things on the internet are deceptive, just take a look, don't believe it. Song Yin handed the phone back to Bai Ye and said. But he also wrote other books. Bai Ye said, calling up another ebook. Song Yin leaned over to take a look. From Single Dog to Lover, the title of the book revealed an unreliable taste. Don't believe it, maybe this whisperer is a single dog himself. Song Yin said with a serious face, how could such a pure white paper as Bai Ye be blackened by these bad guys on the internet? It's a pity that Song Yin didn't know that Bai Ye had already dyed herself in a mess in the process of learning. Oh. Bai Ye continued to talk like a stream, but whether he heard it or not, only he knew. No matter what, Song Yin was quite satisfied with Bai Ye's attitude. Would you like to go out with me today and see your store? Song Yin asked, revealing her real intention to find Bai Ye. My shop is already open. Bai Ye asked strangely. It's being renovated. Song Yin said, what your uncle means is, go take a look and make a name for yourself. This is actually the result of Song Yin's discussion with Bai Jinchinch. Let Bai Ye do some things and have more and better contact with the society, which will help him return to a normal person faster. Okay. Bai Ye nodded. After he had a shop, he would have more open and honest reasons to trade with people. Song Yin stood up, walked aside and made a phone call, then sat down to eat again. Looking at the peaceful appearance, the manic old man next door is very disappointed. 2 hours later, Bai Ye and Song Yin got into the car sent by Bai Jinchanj. Bai Jinchanj didn't come here. He was really busy. He wasn't in Chengdu at all, but was out of town. He called Bai Ye and said something, and hung up the phone very decisively before Bai Ye cared about his hairline. The matter of taking Bai Ye to visit the store has been arranged for his subordinates to do. As for Song Yin, it was also Bai Jinchanj's request to accompany Bai Ye. After all, in the eyes of outsiders, Bai Ye's situation is the first step to open your eyes to see the world, and it is best to have a professional accompany. After leaving the nursing home, the car came to a fairly quiet street. It's here. Song Yin sighed in her heart. Although this street looks quiet, it is a prime location. The location is not central, but there are high-end communities and villas nearby, and this area has a feeling of a wealthy area. With the strength of Jinchanj Group, it is of course no problem to win a store here. But this is for Bai Ye's nonsense, and it shows Bai Jinchanj's connivance towards Bai Ye. Of course, there may also be a sense of guilt. After all, after leaving Bai Ye alone in the nursing home for so long, Song Yin believes that if the family cares, Bai Ye can recover faster. On this point, Song Yin still has some criticisms. Bai Jinchanj's concern for Bai Ye is only in the material aspect, and has not really been implemented at the family level. Of course, it was impossible for Bai Jinchanj to do a better job for a while. Song Yin knew very well that it was difficult for a strong man. Bai Jinchanj was in control of a huge group and was naturally very busy, so it was impossible to always care about Bai Ye. Of course, Bai Ye, who was next to her, didn't know that Song Yin suddenly became sentimental. From Bai Ye's point of view, Bai Jinchanj's approach is simply too good. Why do things that can be solved with money have to be so complicated? Bai Ye could feel Bai Jinchanj's sincerity, so he was very concerned about Bai Jinchanj's hairline. The car stopped, and a few people got out of the car. The man at the front, who was wearing a suit and looked like a social elite, leaned sideways and led the way in front of him, introducing some basic information to Bai Ye, but his eyes occasionally glanced at Song Yin next to Bai Ye. In my heart, I guess I am sighing some remarks such as it's good to have money. Bai Ye's shop, the first floor is not big, about 50 square meters, and there are stairs at the back leading to the second floor. Going up is a single apartment that has been decorated and can be moved in directly. All kinds of facilities and furniture are provided. Everything is there. This place was a small cafe half a year ago. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com closed the store and never reopened. Until Bai Jinchanj bought it directly from the owner some time ago and gave it to Bai Ye. The second floor doesn't need to be redecorated, so now only the first floor is empty, just waiting for Bai Ye to decide what store to open. Let's decorate it like a chain of 2-4-hour convenience stores, the kind that can sell everything. Bai Ye will of course add some relevant knowledge in his spare time, so he knows what store to open. Okay. The meticulous man in a suit with shiny hair nodded. The season is approaching summer, and the temperature is not low. Bai Ye was only wearing a thin long-sleeved t-shirt, but this one was wearing a lot, and there was no sweat on his forehead, which showed his heat resistance ability. He also explained some unreasonable ideas that belonged to Bai Ye's own whimsical thoughts. The man in the suit wrote them down one by one. So, what's the name of the convenience store going to be? The man in the suit asked the most important question in Bai Ye's eyes. The first time-space civilization trading pavilion in the universe. Silence, silence, sweat began to appear on the forehead of the man in the suit. Are you sure you want to call this name? At the same time, he looked at Song Yin. After all, someone has to stop this middle school boy from messing around, and he can't play like this if he has money. Song Yin shook her head slightly. Of course, this store is not for making money, but to help Bai Ye get back to a normal person better. What the name is, Bai Ye is happy, there is no need to argue about such trivial matters. Of course. Bai Ye nodded seriously. As long as you are happy. The man in the suit reluctantly wrote down this exaggerated and funny name. After confirming the name of the store, Bai Ye didn't stay there any longer. Anyway, Bai Ye doesn't know anything about decoration and the like, and he doesn't bother to take care of it. He can just leave it to a professional to do it. No one would go to Pit Bay. To be precise, no one would be willing to do anything on this small shop to offend Bai Jinchinj and even the entire Jinchinj group. Come and see more in the future, go outside more, and be good to you. After being sent back to the nursing home, Song Yin told Bai Ye a few words and left. She has her own things to do, and she can't be like a nanny all the time. Follow the night. Bai Ye, on the other hand, was wandering around, occasionally saying hello to familiar patients or medical staff. If you give him a bird cage, it will be a typical retired cotter's wandering state. Bai Ye walked around and walked to the building belonging to the staff of the sanatorium. The upper part of this building is the dormitory for some staff. The lower part is closer to the hospital. When no one was paying attention, Bai Ye Shun took a few syringes used in the sanatorium. This 4-barrel syringe is a little different from the ordinary injection syringes. It is more advanced. Its syringe is retracted when it is not activated, and it will pop out after being pressed, and then the injection will be performed. When it is not enabled, it is just a slightly thicker test tube, wrapped with a special material, so it feels like a syringe when you pick it up casually in a movie. Actually it is. This is the syringe some patients use when they become manic. Taking these 4 syringes back to his room, Bai Ye poured out the unknown liquid medicine in it, washed it several times, and did not sterilize it. He poured the spring water from the pool of Lazarus into it carelessly. The 4 syringes were all filled, and there was only half of the spring water in the Lazarus pool left in the bottle, and the 2 bottles of spring water in Bai Ye became 1.5. Putting everything back into the portable space, Bai Ye started his daily life in the sanatorium. A few days passed in a flash, and the time for teleportation had cooled down. At night, after dinner in Bai, he returned to his room, locked the door, and started to go to Gotham City. Because Bai Ye is a person in this world, the rod of power and wealth defines this place as the main world. Returning to the position of the main world is basically not much different from the position left. However, this is not the case when teleporting to other worlds. The rod of power and wealth will only delineate a relative area from the position when it left, and then choose the most suitable position. After all, it is impossible to send it to an uninhabited place for those who came to trade in Bai Ye. If Bai Ye goes to sea from Gotham City, a person's yacht drifts off at sea and then leaves. The next time he comes, he will probably not appear on the yacht, but go out to a suitable and safe position near the coast by himself. Therefore, Bai Ye was not at all worried that he would be caught by the Assassin Alliance as soon as he appeared, and then stabbed directly. Of course, Bai Ye now has the mouth of the abyss, which is a little better than the previous state where he was powerless. The place where Bai Ye appeared is still Gotham City, of course not in the hospital last time, but in an alley outside the hospital. Holding the penguin's umbrella in his hand, Bai Ye is about to leave this dark alley. The reason why I hold the umbrella without bullets in my hand is because in addition to being used as a firearm, this umbrella has other functions. The end of the umbrella handle can be pulled out with a forearm-length blade, and the umbrella can be opened enough to form a shield. Weapons such as ordinary knives cannot break the umbrella at all. Even if it is a normal pistol, it probably takes several shots before it can break the defense. The umbrella transformed by Penguin still has a long way to go from Batman's black technology props, but it is more than enough to guard against some unexpected small situations. For example, now walking into the alley, I found 2 gangsters who were about to come out in Bai Ye, and they blocked Bai Ye with bad intentions. One took out a gun, the other took out a knife, obviously preparing to vote, very direct and straightforward, reflecting the simple folk customs of Gotham City residents. "Yellow boy, if you don't want to get hurt, hand over all your money. The little gangster with the butterfly knife said while swinging the knife very coolly. Bai Ye unhurriedly opened the umbrella. Ha, are you going to block us with that? The little gangster with the gun laughed in a low voice. Back up! Before Bai Ye could speak, an indifferent voice came from above the three of them. Bai Ye looked up, and at some point, on the roof above his head, a black figure appeared. In the dark environment, the figure showed a darkness that was deeper than black, and the entire outline looked like a giant bat. Bat! The two little gangsters didn't finish their words, and the black bat figure fell from the sky. After the two hits were neat and swift, and after the punches and kicks that ordinary people couldn't do, the two thugs lay on the ground and simply fell into a coma. Bai Ye even heard the sound of their bones breaking. It's true that Batman can't kill people, but he doesn't mind breaking people's bones and letting them lie in the hospital for months. Child, you shouldn't be in the alley at this time. Batman turned his head and said to Bai Ye. Batman is 1.88 meters tall, and with a black bat uniform and bat cape, he looks very tall and oppressive. Just an ordinary figure, and a slightly thin Bai Ye in front of him, indeed like a child. No, not like. But it's just that, don't forget that Bai Ye is only 18 years old this year. No matter whether he is here or in the main world, he is at the age of high school. For Batman, isn't this age a child? Batman? I'm so lucky, Bai Ye said with a smile. Of course, his words would not be ignored by Batman. After exhorting him, Batman fired the grappling hook and left instantly. That powerful pulling force is estimated to be able to tear the arms of ordinary people, so only after professional and rigorous training Batman dares to play so casually. He seems to be injured. Bai Ye looked at the direction Batman left, and secretly said in his heart. Just now, he keenly observed that there are some scratches on the exposed half of Batman's face, and there are also some scratches of the blade on the bat uniform, which are not too obvious. After walking out of the alley, a police car came roaring and took away the two unlucky gangsters. After inquiring a little about the pedestrians around, the police left without finding the victim. Anyway, most of the gangsters in Gotham City have piles of cases, so it is not difficult to convict them and throw them in jail. The victim Bai Ye was calling at a public phone booth at this time. Hey, yes, it's me, Cobot. You're very smart this time. Of course, the old guy Penguin was talking to Bai Ye. Soon, Bai Ye got into the Penguin's car, but there was no Penguin inside. Instead, the ugly face of the Penguin appeared on the screen of the car, staring at Bai Ye. Apparently there are cameras in the car that allow him to see the White Knight. You seem to have made a big move. Penguin looked at Bai Ye and said. Oh, is it? Bai Ye was non-committal. What have you done to the League of Assassins? They have searched all over Gotham in the past few days to find you. The Penguin said. They found you? Bai Ye asked with a smile. Humph, I did find me, but I'm afraid of them. The Penguin looked cold and arrogant, meaning that he didn't betray Bai Ye. The foundation of the Assassin League is not in Gotham. The reason why it often appears in Gotham is mostly because of Batman. They are crossing river dragons, but isn't the Penguin a local snake or a sitting tiger? The Penguin didn't like to have any interactions with the Assassin League. It didn't mean that he was really afraid of them. He just thought that this group of lunatics was very troublesome. If the Assassin League intends to do business with the Penguin, it is estimated that the Penguin has a different attitude. They made a noise and attracted Batman. The leader seems to have been beaten to death and has now left Gotham City. The Penguin smiled maliciously, a bunch of idiots. You read www.yuyugonshu.com. In Gotham City, the Penguins do not need to be afraid of the Assassin League, but the Assassin League is undoubtedly higher than the Penguins, and it is impossible to have any respect for the Penguins. The Penguin was still very happy to see them deflated. Gotham City has Gotham City's rules and ways of doing things, and dangerous outsiders are naturally unwelcome characters. I saw Batman, he was slightly injured. Bai Ye said. The penguin nodded, it's estimated to be the final finishing touch. By the way, what are you looking for from me this time? Is there any deal? The two transactions, the penguin is also a bit of a gain, and he is naturally very interested in Bai Ye and the hidden forces behind it. As a slightly normal villain in Gotham City, the penguin does not reject cooperation and transactions that are beneficial to him at all. The penguin's value profit. He didn't betray Bai Ye, just because the Assassin League was so high, he didn't give a bid at all. As long as the price is sufficient, the penguin will not have any pressure or hesitation to sell Bai Ye. There is a deal, but you may not be able to eat it. Bai Ye leaned back in his chair and said. Oh, talk about it. The penguin became interested, and his eyes gleamed. There is a reason why the Assassin League is looking for me all over the world. Bai Ye said proudly, I took their most precious treasure, some spring water from the pool of Lazarus. What is that? The penguin asked. Don't you know? Bai Ye was stunned for a moment, and then he realized that the existence of the Lazarus pool was naturally a secret. It's normal for the penguin to not know. Bai Ye opened the plugin of God's vision, and only knew many secrets, but it was not because other people's secrecy work was not in place.